Gregory Palmer's hand trembled as he slammed the phone down. Find her. Find that woman and get those files back before she destroys everything I've built. His lawyer, Richard Thornton, leaned forward. Sir, she's homeless. She lives in a van with her kid. She won't even know what she's found. You don't understand. Gregory's voice cracked. Victoria hid everything in that storage unit. Everything. If that woman figures out what she has, I'll lose the gallery, my reputation, my freedom. 40 years of secrets, Richard, exposed by a homeless mother who paid $47. But 3 days earlier, Keisha Williams had no idea her life was about to change forever. She was just trying to survive another day. Before we continue, please subscribe to our channel and follow this incredible story to the very end. Comment below with the city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Keisha Williams pressed her hand against her son's chest and counted. 1 breath. 2 breaths. The wheeze was back. Marcus, baby, wake up. The boy's eyes fluttered open in the back of their Dodge van. 10 years old, skinny, brilliant, and right now, struggling to breathe properly. Is it morning already? Marcus rubbed his eyes. Almost 6. We need to move before the gas station guy shows up. Marcus sat up slowly, reaching automatically for the blue inhaler in his pocket. 2 puffs. Hold. Count to 10. Keisha watched every second of it the way she'd watched every morning for the past 14 months since they'd lost their apartment. I had the dream again, Mom. The house dream. Yeah, it had bookshelves all the way to the ceiling, and my own room with a window that looked out at trees. Marcus smiled, but his eyes were tired. Do you think we'll ever have a house like that? Keisha pulled him close. I promise you, baby, one day. She'd made that promise so many times she'd lost count. Some days she believed it. Most days she just said the words because Marcus needed to hear them. Their morning routine was a dance they'd perfected through necessity. Park behind Mrs. Dorothy Jenkins' muffler shop at night. Wake before dawn. Drive to the Chevron station on Figueroa where the bathroom was around back, away from the cashier's suspicious eyes. Go ahead, I'll watch the door, Keisha said when they arrived. Marcus slipped inside with his toothbrush and the bottle of water they kept for exactly this purpose. 3 minutes later, they switched places. Keisha splashed water on her face and stared at herself in the cracked mirror. 34 years old. Once she'd cleaned mansions in Beverly Hills. Now she cleaned herself in gas station bathrooms. Back at the van, she split a granola bar and handed half to Marcus along with an apple. This is breakfast. This is breakfast. We'll get something better later. She didn't know how. Their money situation was desperate. $47 to their name after buying gas yesterday. Marcus's inhaler was running low and a new one cost $85 they didn't have. Her phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Jenkins. Come by when you get a chance. Got something for you. Dorothy Jenkins was one of the few people who'd shown them genuine kindness since they'd become homeless. A 62-year-old black woman who ran her auto shop alone since her husband died, she let Keisha park behind her building and never asked for anything in return. We're going to see Mrs. Jenkins, Keisha told Marcus. Can I help her with cars again? Last time she taught me about spark plugs. We'll see. 20 minutes later, they pulled up behind the muffler shop. Mrs. Jenkins was already outside, coffee in hand, gray hair pulled back tight. Morning, Dorothy. Morning yourself. How'd y'all sleep? Fine, ma'am, Marcus answered politely. Mrs. Jenkins smiled at him, then turned to Keisha with something in her hand. A crumpled piece of paper. What's the storage auction? Valley View over on the east side. Units that haven't been paid for 90 days go up for bid. Cash only cleared out in 48 hours. Keisha looked at the flyer. Starting bids as low as $25. Why are you showing me this? Because you've got eyes, girl. Mrs. Jenkins tapped her temple. All those years cleaning rich folks' houses, you learned things. I've seen you spot a real silver spoon from across a thrift store. You know value when you see it. That was different. That was survival. This is survival too, just a different kind. Mrs. Jenkins pressed the flyer into Keisha's hand. Sometimes the universe sends you an opportunity. Question is whether you're paying attention. Keisha stared at the paper. The auction was today at 10. She had $47. I can't afford to gamble with what we have left. Can you afford not to? Marcus tugged at her sleeve. Mom, I've seen those shows, the storage hunter ones. People find really valuable stuff sometimes. TV isn't real life, baby. But you always find good things. Remember that brooch you found in the donation bin? You knew it was real pearls before anyone else. He wasn't wrong. That brooch was sitting in her purse right now, waiting to be pawned. She'd been planning to take it to Samir's shop today, hoping to get $50 or $60 for it. Mrs. Jenkins put her hand on Keisha's shoulder. 20 years ago, I was living in my car, too. You know what got me out? Someone gave me a chance I didn't think I deserved. Now I'm giving you one. I don't know anything about storage auctions. You know quality when you see it. That's more than most people have. Keisha looked at Marcus. His eyes were bright with hope, the kind of hope she usually tried to protect him from, because disappointment hurt worse when you let yourself believe. Can we at least go look, Blag? He asked. She sighed. Let me pawn this brooch first. See how much we're actually working with. Samir Hassan's pawn shop was small, but clean. The Lebanese man with the neatly trimmed beard looked up when the bell jingled. Good morning. What can I do for you today? Keisha unwrapped the brooch from its tissue paper and set it on the counter. Victorian. 1880s, I think. The pearls are real, but small. Samir's eyebrows rose. He picked up a loop and examined the piece closely. You know jewelry. I know a little about a lot of things. You are correct. Late Victorian, good condition. Silver setting, not platinum, which limits the value. He set down the loop. I can give you $60. 65. Samir smiled. Done. As he counted out the bills, Marcus wandered to a display case full of pocket watches and old cameras. His curiosity was boundless, even in a pawn shop. Smart kid, Samir observed. Too smart for his own good sometimes. Samir reached under the counter and pulled out a battered chess set. You play, he asked Marcus. The boy's eyes went wide. Yes, sir, at the library sometimes. Take it. The board folds up, the pieces are magnetic. Previous owner didn't want it back. Marcus looked at his mother, seeking permission. That's very kind, Keisha said carefully. She'd learned to be suspicious of generosity. I have 5 grandchildren. Education is everything. Games that make you think are very important. Samir pushed the chess set toward Marcus. Please, it only collects dust here. Marcus took it like it was treasure. Thank you, sir. Outside, Keisha counted their money. 65 from the brooch plus the 47 they already had. $112. A week of gas and food if they were careful, or one gamble. Mom, we should go to the auction. Marcus, that money is for your inhaler. My inhaler can wait a few more days. This might be our chance. Do you? What if we lose everything and come away with nothing? Marcus held up his new chess set. Mr. Samir didn't have to give me this, but he did because he believed I was worth it. He looked up at her with those 2 wise eyes. Maybe someone believed we'd find something worth having too. Keisha wanted to argue. She wanted to be responsible and practical and protect what little they had, but something in her son's words echoed what Mrs. Jenkins had said. Sometimes the universe sends you an opportunity. Fine, we'll go look, but I'm not promising anything. Valley View Storage was a dusty facility surrounded by chain-link fence and razor wire, the kind of place where people stored things they wanted to forget about. A crowd had already gathered near the entrance. Mostly men in their 30s and 40s, some carrying flashlights, others with smartphones out, all with the sharp eyes of professional hunters. Keisha parked the van and hesitated. She didn't belong here. These people knew what they were doing. Mom? Stay close to me, and don't talk to anyone. They joined the group just as a heavy-set man in a company polo shirt started explaining the rules. Each unit opens for 2 minutes. Look, but don't touch. Don't step inside. Then we bid. Cash only. You win, you've got 48 hours to clear everything out. Any questions? A burly man near Keisha snorted. His badge said Clyde. He looked like he'd been doing this for years. Fresh meat, he muttered to another guy, nodding toward Keisha. Watch her bid on garbage and think she's found gold. Keisha pretended not to hear. The first unit held furniture. Nice stuff, actually. A sectional sofa, dining table, dressers. The bidding started at 50 and climbed fast. 200, 250, 300. Keisha watched, surprised, learning the rhythm. These people knew exactly what they were looking at. They had experienced resources trucks waiting to haul things away. She had a van and $47 she couldn't afford to spend. The unit sold for $950 to a man who was already on his phone arranging pickup. Unit 2 went for $775. Unit 3 for over $1,000. By Unit 4, Keisha's hope was fading. This was a mistake. She should leave now, save the gas money, figure out another way to get Marcus his medication. You look lost. She turned. A thin woman with nervous eyes stood beside her wearing a Valley View Storage name tag, Sarah Nguyen. Just watching. Sarah glanced around, then leaned closer. There's one coming up you might want to pay attention to, Unit 34. Why? Because it's been paid for automatically for 40 years. Every year, same day, money transfers from a trust account. Sarah's voice dropped. Until 3 months ago when the account ran out. Stickman, 40 years, who pays for a storage unit for 40 years. Someone who wanted to make sure their things stayed hidden for a very long time. Sarah stepped back. Just pay attention when it opens, and be careful. Sometimes the things that look worthless are hidden that way on purpose. Before Keisha could ask what she meant, Sarah hurried away. Unit 34 came up 20 minutes later. When the door rolled open, several bidders actually laughed. The space was small, maybe 5 by 10 feet, and it looked like garbage. Water-damaged boxes stacked against one wall, mismatched furniture, rolled-up carpets, a broken dresser. Looks like someone's spring cleaning, Clyde joked. But Keisha's eyes were moving, cataloging, analyzing. All those years in rich people's homes had taught her to see what others missed. The water damage was only on certain boxes, the ones against the left wall. The carpets showed no mold despite the dampness. And in the back corner, almost invisible in the shadows, sat a wooden trunk that was completely dry. Someone had deliberately protected certain things while making the unit look worthless. Why, starting bid for Unit 34, $25. Most of the crowd wandered away. This was clearly junk to them. 30, someone called lazily. Keisha's heart started pounding. 45, she said. Clyde glanced at her with surprise. Lady, you actually want that trash? She ignored him. 45 going once, going twice. 47. Keisha's voice was stronger now. I bid $47. It was everything they had. Silence. The other bidder shrugged and walked away. Sold to the lady for $47. Keisha's hands were shaking as she completed the paperwork. The facility manager handed her a key and a receipt. 48 hours to clear it out. Clock starts now. Mom, we won. Marcus was bouncing on his feet. We actually won. We won something, baby. We don't know what yet. As they walked toward Unit 34, Sarah appeared again. Be careful with what you found, she said quietly. Some things are hidden because people don't want them found, and some people will do anything to keep their secrets buried. Then she was gone. Keisha stared at the open unit. The trunk in the back corner seemed to pull at her attention. What had Sarah said paid for 40 years, hidden on purpose? What exactly had she just bought, Mom? Marcus tugged her hand. Are we going in? Yeah, baby, let's see what we found. The first hour was discouraging. Most of the water-damaged boxes contained exactly what they looked like, ruined papers and worthless junk. Someone had deliberately destroyed them to make the unit seem like a waste of time. But the things that were protected told a different story. The rolled carpets were actually fine. Dusty but undamaged. Not valuable but sellable. Behind the broken dresser, Keisha found a set of silver flatware wrapped in tarnished cloth. Real silver, maybe $200 if she found the right buyer. A box of hardcover books had been positioned to stay dry. Old editions, some from the 1930s. Not first editions, but collectors might pay something. And then there was the trunk. It's locked, Marcus said, trying the latch. We'll deal with that later. Help me get these other things to the van first. They worked for 2 hours sorting and loading. Keisha was aware of every minute passing, aware that they only had 48 hours and would need to make multiple trips. Mom, look what I found. Marcus held up an old Polaroid camera. Do you think it still works? Maybe. Set it aside. We'll check later. By evening, they'd cleared about half the unit. The trunk was now accessible, but still locked. They loaded everything they could into the van and drove to a hardware store where Keisha bought a small pry bar with $5 she'd hidden for emergencies. That night, parked in a grocery store lot instead of their usual spot behind Mrs. Jenkins' shop, Keisha worked on the trunk while Marcus sorted through their finds. These books are really old, he said, carefully turning pages. This one's from 1932. First editions. I don't think so, but they're still nice. The trunk's lock finally gave way. Keisha sat back, wiping sweat from her forehead, then slowly lifted the lid. Inside was a carefully organized collection. Jewelry boxes, sealed envelopes tied with faded ribbon, an American flag folded in a triangle display case, and newspaper clippings preserved in plastic sleeves. Keisha picked up one of the clippings. The headline read, Palmer Estate Valuation Exceeds Expectations. The article dated 1985 discussed the art collection of Charles Palmer, described as one of the city's premier art dealers and collectors. Who's Charles Palmer? Marcus asked, reading over her shoulder. I don't know. She picked up one of the jewelry boxes. Inside was a gold locket on a delicate chain. Keisha opened it to find a tiny photograph of a young woman with a gentle smile and intelligent eyes. On the back of the locket was an engraving, "To Victoria, all my love." "That's pretty," Marcus said. But Keisha wasn't looking at the locket anymore. She was looking at the photograph. Something about the woman's eyes. Her expression spoke of someone determined, someone who planned ahead, someone who might hide important things in a storage unit for 40 years. Marcus had opened another box, revealing a velvet pouch. "Mom, look." Inside the pouch was a key, small ornate with a numbered tag attached. "Box 891. "What's that mean?" Marcus asked.
It's
"It's a safe deposit box key from a bank." Keisha's mind was racing. A trunk full of personal items, newspaper clippings about an art collection worth millions, a photograph of a woman named Victoria, and a key to something hidden in a bank vault. What had she stumbled into? She dug deeper into the trunk and found it, a torn page from a diary preserved separately from everything else. The handwriting was neat, feminine, and urgent. "If anything happens to me, the proof is secured. Box 891 contains everything needed to expose the truth. Charles trusted me with his legacy, not Gregory. G has always resented this and will do anything to claim what he believes is his. I've arranged a failsafe. This unit is paid for 40 years in advance under a false name. If I can't retrieve these items myself, I pray someone worthy finds them." It was signed simply VP and dated August 17th, 1984. 1984, 40 years ago. This woman, Victoria, had prepared for something terrible. She'd hidden evidence, left clues, paid for the storage unit for 4 decades, and now a homeless mother with $47 had found it all. "Moms?" Marcus's voice was worried. "You look scared." "I'm not scared, baby." But she was. "I think we found something important. Something that might be dangerous." "Dangerous how?" She looked at the diary page again. Gregory, the name mentioned with fear. G has always resented this and will do anything to claim what he believes is his. Will do anything. I don't know yet, but I think we need to be very careful about who we tell. That night, after Marcus fell asleep clutching his new chess set, Keisha lay awake in the back of the van. The locket was in her hand. The young woman's photograph barely visible in the darkness. Victoria, whoever you were, whatever happened to you, you left this for someone to find. You trusted that someone worthy would come along. Was she worthy? A homeless woman who couldn't even afford her son's medication. Maybe that's exactly who Victoria had been waiting for. Someone with nothing to lose and everything to gain. Someone who knew what it meant to be overlooked and underestimated. Someone who could see value where others saw trash. The next morning, Keisha made a decision. "We're going to the library," she told Marcus. "We need to find out who Victoria Palmer was and what happened to her." The Central Library of Los Angeles was a temple of knowledge that had always welcomed them. Free internet, clean bathrooms, librarians who didn't judge. Keisha set Marcus up at a computer terminal. "Search for Charles Palmer, art collector, Los Angeles, and Victoria Palmer. See what you can find." For an hour, they dug through archived articles and old records. Charles Palmer had been a prominent art dealer from 1962 until his death in 1983. His collection was valued in the millions. After he died, everything went to his nephew, Gregory Palmer. But there were questions. One article written by an investigative journalist named Eleanor Gray raised concerns about the timing of Charles's will, about the role of his personal assistant, Victoria Palmer, about her sudden disappearance just months after Charles's death. "Mom, look at this." Marcus had found a society page photo from 1982. Charles Palmer at a gallery opening an older man with kind eyes. Beside him stood a young woman with an intelligent face. Victoria Palmer, the caption read, personal assistant, the same woman from the locket. "She disappeared?" Marcus asked. Keisha read the article more carefully. Victoria Palmer had vanished in September 1984. Gregory Palmer told police she'd been distraught after Charles's death and may have taken her own life. But this journalist Eleanor Gray had questions. Victoria had been about to challenge Charles's will. She claimed the version Gregory presented was fraudulent, that Charles had actually left his personal collection to her. Then she vanished, and no one ever saw her again. "Mom," Marcus's voice was quiet. "Do you think someone hurt her?" Keisha stared at the screen. The diary page, the hidden evidence, 40 years of secrets buried in a storage unit. "I think Victoria was afraid of something or someone." She looked at her son. "And I think we just found what she was trying to protect." Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. The text was simple. "The items from Unit 34 have significant value. $5,000 cash, no questions asked. Reply if interested. Keisha's blood went cold. Someone already knew. Someone was watching. And they wanted what she'd found, badly enough, to offer $5,000 sight unseen. Victoria's words echoed in her mind. G will do anything to claim what he believes is his. Gregory Palmer was still alive. Still powerful. And after 40 years, his secrets were finally in danger of being exposed. By a homeless mother who'd paid $47 for a unit full of garbage. Keisha looked at Marcus at his innocent face at the hope in his eyes. What had she gotten them into? Keisha stared at the text message for a full minute before her hands stopped shaking. $5,000. More money than she'd seen in over a year. Enough to get Marcus his inhaler, rent a real apartment, maybe even start over. All she had to do was hand over everything Victoria had spent 40 years protecting. Mom, what's wrong? Marcus was watching her with those two perceptive eyes. Nothing, baby, just spam. She deleted the message, but the number was burned into her memory. Someone knew. Someone was watching. And they'd moved fast. Too fast. We need to go, she said suddenly. Right now. But we haven't finished researching. We'll come back tomorrow. Pack up. Something in her voice must have scared him because Marcus didn't argue. He gathered his things quickly, the chess set clutched under one arm, and followed her out of the library. In the parking lot, Keisha's eyes swept the area. A white sedan sat 3 rows over. She couldn't see the driver through the tinted windows, but she felt watched. The same prickling sensation she'd had in the storage facility when Sarah warned her to be careful. She drove in circles for 20 minutes, taking random turns, doubling back, watching her mirrors. The white sedan appeared twice before she finally lost it in a shopping center parking lot. Her phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. Final offer, $8,000. No police, no journalists. After this, we proceed differently. Proceed differently. The words felt like a threat wrapped in silk. Keisha pulled into a spot behind 2 delivery trucks and sat there, engine running, mind racing. Whoever sent these messages knew about the storage unit, knew what was inside, and wanted it badly enough to throw $8,000 at a stranger. Why? What was worth that much after 40 years? The diary page, the safe deposit key, the evidence Victoria mentioned, Gregory Palmer, the nephew who'd inherited everything, the man Victoria had feared. Mom, Marcus's voice was small. You're scaring me. Keisha took a deep breath. I'm sorry, baby. I'm just being careful. Is someone following us? She wanted to lie, wanted to protect him from the fear that was crawling up her spine, but Marcus was too smart for lies. Maybe. I'm not sure. Because of what we found. I think so. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that made her heart ache with pride and terror at the same time. Then we can't give it back. If someone's that scared of what's in there, it must be really important. It's not that simple. Yes, it is. His voice was firm. Victoria hid those things for 40 years. She wanted someone to find them. She wanted the truth to come out. He looked at her with complete certainty. We found it, Mom. We're supposed to do something with it. Out of the mouths of children. That night, they parked in a different spot, a 24-hour grocery store lot where other vehicles sometimes stayed overnight. Keisha didn't sleep. Every time headlights swept past. She tensed. Every shadow seemed like a threat. At 3 a.m, she made a decision. She couldn't do this alone. She needed help. She needed someone who understood what they'd found and what it meant. Eleanor Gray, the journalist who'd written that article 40 years ago. The only person who'd publicly questioned the official story about Victoria Palmer. If she was still alive. At dawn, Keisha used the library's computer to search. Eleanor Gray, investigative journalist, Los Angeles. The results came quickly. Eleanor had written for the LA Examiner until it closed, then transitioned to blogging about LA history and politics. Her website had a contact page. Keisha typed, carefully aware that anything she put in writing could be used against her. Ms. Gray, I recently found some items that belonged to Victoria Palmer. Your article from 1984 raised questions about her disappearance and the Palmer estate. I believe I may have found evidence that supports your suspicions. Would you be willing to meet? She signed it with just her first name and a temporary email address. The response came in 20 minutes. Intrigued. Coffee tomorrow, 10 a.m. at Figaro on Vermont. I'll be wearing a red scarf. Eleanor. Tomorrow. 24 hours of waiting while someone with $8,000 and the ability to track her movements circled closer. We need to go back to the storage unit, Keisha told Marcus. There might be more we missed. The clock was ticking. They only had until tomorrow evening to clear everything out. After that, Valley View would reclaim the space and anything left inside. They spent the day sorting through the remaining items. Keisha worked methodically while Marcus kept watch, running to the entrance every few minutes to check for anyone suspicious. "Mom, I found something." He was kneeling by the water-damaged dresser, holding the bottom drawer at an odd angle. "There's a hidden space under here, look." He was right. The drawer had a false bottom. Inside was an envelope containing photographs, old and faded but carefully preserved. The first showed Victoria standing in front of a magnificent painting, her arm linked with Charles Palmer's. On the back, Charles and V with the Monet 1982, happiest birthday. The second showed Victoria alone on a beach house deck. Malibu Retreat, summer 1983. The third made Keisha's breath catch. Victoria standing in front of an old building downtown holding a key, her expression a mixture of determination and fear. On the back, failsafe number 2, August 1984. Failsafe number 2. The storage unit was one. The safe deposit box was probably another. But there was a third hiding place somewhere. "Mom, look at this one." Marcus handed her another photo. Victoria and Charles at what looked like a formal dinner. But it was the man in the background that caught Keisha's attention. Younger, sharper, watching Victoria with an expression that could only be described as hatred. She flipped it over. "Gallery opening 1982. Charles V and Gregory." Gregory Palmer? Victoria's enemy. The man who'd inherited everything and possibly made her disappear. And now he was after Keisha. They loaded the last of the salvageable items into the van. The trunk, the photographs, the silver, the books. Everything Victoria had protected for 40 years. As they were leaving, Sarah appeared again. "You're being watched," she said without preamble. "A man came by this morning asking questions about who bought Unit 34. I didn't tell him anything, but he had a badge from the facility's parent company. He could get the information anyway." "Who was he?" "I don't know, but he was wearing a very expensive suit for someone asking about a storage auction." Sarah glanced around nervously. "Be careful. Whatever's in that unit, someone powerful wants it back." "Why are you helping me?" Sarah was quiet for a moment. "Because I've worked here for 5 years and I've seen things. Units that get bid on by the same person every time. Items that disappear before auctions. People who ask too many questions." She met Keisha's eyes. "I don't know what happened 40 years ago, but I know when something's wrong. And the way that man asked about you felt very wrong." She slipped back into the facility before Keisha could thank her. That night, Keisha didn't sleep at all. She sat in the driver's seat watching while Marcus curled up in back with his chest set. Every hour she checked on him, listened to his breathing, prayed the wheeze wouldn't get worse. At 8 in the morning, her phone rang. Mrs. Jenkins. "Keisha, are you all right?" "I'm fine. Why?" "Someone came by the shop looking for you, were you? A man in a suit, said he was from a law firm representing someone you'd found property belonging to." Mrs. Jenkins' voice was tight. "He knew your name. He asked about Marcus." Keisha's blood turned to ice. "What did you tell him?" "Nothing. Said I barely knew you, just let you park sometimes. But Keisha, he left a business card, Richard Thornton, attorney at law, and he said there could be unpleasant legal consequences if you don't contact him." "Thank you for warning me, Dorothy." "Are you in trouble?" "I don't know. Maybe." "Whatever it is, be careful. And don't bring Marcus by here for a while. I didn't like the way that man asked about him." She hung up and Keisha sat motionless, phone gripped in her white-knuckled hand. They'd found her. They knew about Marcus, and now they were using lawyers to make threats. The message was clear. Hand over what you found, or we'll take your son. For a moment, pure terror paralyzed her. She could take the $8,000, give them everything, walk away. Protect Marcus. Survive. But then she remembered Victoria's words. "I pray someone worthy finds them." And Marcus's words. "We're supposed to do something with it." Keisha Williams had been overlooked and underestimated her entire life. She'd been pushed around by landlords, employers, and systems designed to keep people like her down. She'd lost her home, her stability, her dignity. She would not let them take her son, too. "Marcus, wake up." "What time is it?" "Time to go. We're meeting someone who might be able to help us." She drove to Figaro's Cafe on Vermont with one eye on the mirrors. No white sedan. No obvious followers. But that didn't mean they weren't there. Eleanor Gray was exactly where she said she'd be, sitting alone at a corner table with a red scarf around her neck. She was older than Keisha had expected, mid-60s, with silver hair cut short and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "You must be Keisha." "Yes, ma'am." Eleanor's gaze swept over her, taking in the worn clothes, the tired eyes, the child standing protectively at her side. "Sit down, both of you. I ordered coffee." Keisha sat. Marcus slid into the seat next to her, silent but watchful. "Your email mentioned Victoria Palmer," Eleanor said without preamble. "That's a name I haven't heard in a long time. Tell me what you found." Keisha told her everything: the storage auction, the trunk, the diary page, the photographs, the safe deposit key, and the threatening messages. Eleanor listened without interrupting. When Keisha mentioned the offer of $8,000, the older woman's expression hardened. "They're scared," Eleanor said. "After 40 years, someone finally found Victoria's insurance and they're terrified." "Who's they?" "Gregory Palmer, or more likely his attack dog, Richard Thornton." Eleanor leaned forward. "I've been chasing this story since 1984. I was young then, just starting out. Victoria's disappearance was one of my first big investigations. I knew something was wrong. The timing, the circumstances, the way Gregory swooped in with a convenient will, but I could never prove anything." "What do you think happened to her?" Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. "I think Victoria discovered that Gregory had been embezzling from the gallery. I think she found proof, and I think when she threatened to expose him, he made sure she couldn't." "You think he killed her?" "I think he made her disappear. Whether that means murder or something else, I don't know." Eleanor's voice was heavy. "I've spent 40 years wondering. And now you walk in with a storage unit full of evidence that Victoria specifically hid in case something happened to her." She looked at Keisha with new respect. "How did you know to buy that particular unit?" "I didn't. I just saw that some things were protected while others were destroyed. It looked deliberate, like someone was hiding value in plain sight." "That's exactly what Victoria would do." Eleanor smiled sadly. "She was clever, too clever for her own good, maybe. She knew Gregory would come looking, so she made the unit look like garbage, paid for 40 years in advance under a false name, left clues only someone paying attention would notice. Someone like a homeless woman buying a unit for $47? Someone who knows what it's like to be overlooked. Someone who understands that value isn't always obvious." Eleanor reached across the table and squeezed Keisha's hand. "Victoria would have liked you." "What do I do now? They're threatening my son. They have lawyers." "You need lawyers too. I know someone. Miranda Chen specializes in estate disputes. She's taken on powerful families before and won." Eleanor pulled out her phone. "And you need to move fast. If Gregory is scared enough to make threats, he's scared enough to do worse." "There's something else." Keisha pulled out her phone and showed Eleanor the text from Mrs. Jenkins about the lawyer's visit. "They came to where we sleep. They know everything about us." "Then you can't stay there anymore. My apartment has a spare room. It's not much, but it's safe." "I can't ask you to do that." "You're not asking. I'm offering." Eleanor's voice was firm. 40 years ago, I couldn't protect Victoria. I was too young, too inexperienced, too scared of powerful people. I'm not scared anymore, and I'm not going to let Gregory Palmer destroy another woman's life." Marcus, who had been silent throughout, finally spoke. "Mom, we should trust her." Keisha looked at her son at the certainty in his eyes. "How do you know?" "Because she didn't have to meet us. She didn't have to offer help. She could have ignored your email like everyone else probably would have." He shrugged with a wisdom beyond his years. "People who help when they don't have to are the ones you can trust." Eleanor smiled at him. "Smart kid." "That's what everyone says." They followed Eleanor to her apartment in Los Feliz, a modest two-bedroom filled with books, files, and 40 years of journalistic investigation. "The spare room is through there. It's mostly storage, but there's a bed." Eleanor started clearing stacks of papers from surfaces. "Make yourselves comfortable. We have work to do." Over the next 3 hours, they cataloged everything from the storage unit. Every photograph, every document, and every piece of evidence Victoria had preserved. The picture that emerged was damning. Charles Palmer had discovered his nephew was stealing from the gallery. He'd changed his will, leaving his personal art collection to Victoria instead of Gregory. 2 months later, Charles died. Gregory produced an earlier will, leaving everything to him. Victoria challenged it. She gathered evidence. She prepared to expose Gregory's fraud. Then she vanished. "The safe deposit key," Eleanor said, holding up the small, ornate key with its numbered tag. "This might be the most important piece. Victoria wrote that Box 891 contains everything needed to expose the truth. If we can access it, we might have enough to reopen the investigation into her disappearance." "How do we access a 40-year-old safe deposit box?" "I have a contact at the bank. First National was absorbed by Western Union Banking years ago, but all the boxes were transferred. Eleanor made a note. Let me make some calls. Shuddy. While Eleanor worked the phone, Keisha sat with Marcus, who was examining one of the old photographs. Mom, look at this. He'd found a picture of Victoria standing with an elderly woman in what looked like a doctor's office. On the back, with Dr. Ruth Chambers Charles's physician, she knows everything. She witnessed the will, Keisha realized. The real will. If she's still alive, she could testify about what Charles actually wanted. So Victoria left us a trail, Marcus said, like breadcrumbs. The photographs tell us who to find. You're pretty good at this detective stuff. I read a lot of mystery books at the library. He grinned. Plus, I'm smart. Too smart for your own good. Eleanor returned her expression grave. Bad news. Box 891 was accessed 3 days ago. 3 days ago? Keisha felt her stomach drop. But that's right after the auction. Exactly. Richard Thornton showed up with power of attorney for the Palmer estate. He removed everything. Sss. Eleanor sat down heavily. They knew about the safe deposit box. They've known all along. They were just waiting for the storage unit to finally surface. So whatever Victoria hid in there is gone. Probably destroyed. Eleanor looked at the evidence spread across her dining table. Which means what you found in the storage unit is all that's left. The photographs, the diary page, the other documents. It's the only proof that Victoria was telling the truth. No wonder they want it so badly. Eleanor's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and frowned. It's my contact at the bank. He has more information. She stepped away to take the call. Keisha used the moment to check her own phone. 3 new messages from the unknown number. Last chance, $10,000. Meet at Westridge Legal tomorrow 9 a.m. Bring everything from the storage unit. Your situation is precarious. We know where you park. We know about your son's medical needs. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Child Protective Services takes an interest in children living in vehicles. Think about what's best for Marcus. The last message hit her like a physical blow. They were threatening to take her son, to use the system against her the way it had been used against vulnerable mothers for generations. Her hands were shaking when Eleanor returned. Keisha, what's wrong? She showed her the messages. Eleanor's face went hard. They're desperate. This level of explicit threat is illegal. We can use this against them. They're threatening to call CPS, to take Marcus away because we're homeless. They won't succeed. You have documentation of proper care. His education is on track. You're addressing his medical needs. Eleanor gripped her shoulders. This is intimidation, pure and simple. They're trying to scare you into giving up. It's working. Then we need to move faster than they expect. Eleanor grabbed her phone again. I'm calling Miranda Chen right now. We need legal protection before they make their next move. While Eleanor made calls, Marcus came to sit beside Keisha. He took her hand without saying anything, just held it. I'm scared, she admitted. Me too. He squeezed her fingers. But we can't let them win. Victoria trusted us with her secret. If we give up, the bad guys get away with whatever they did to her. When did you get so brave? I learned from you. He looked up at her with those 2 wise eyes. Every day you wake up and figure out how to keep us alive. That's the bravest thing I've ever seen. Keisha pulled him close, tears burning her eyes. Eleanor returned. Miranda's on her way. She's very interested in taking on the Palmer family. What about the safe deposit box? If they emptied it, we have no way to prove what was inside. Actually, we might. Eleanor held up her phone. My contact did some digging. The box was accessed 3 days ago, yes, but here's the thing. Gregory Palmer's name isn't on the access list. Neither is Richard Thornton's. The person who opened that box used Victoria Palmer's name. But Victoria's been missing for 40 years. Exactly. Eleanor's eyes were bright with the thrill of investigation. Someone forged her identity to access the box. That's fraud. And if we can prove it, Gregory Palmer just gave us another crime to add to the list. How do we prove it? Bank record security footage if they kept it witness testimony from the employees who processed the request. Eleanor started pacing. Gregory's been getting away with this for 40 years because no one challenged him, but he's gotten sloppy. He's so used to being untouchable that he's making mistakes. A knock at the door made all 3 of them jump. Eleanor checked the peephole. It's Miranda! Miranda Chen was a sharp-featured woman in her 40s, carrying a leather briefcase and radiating competent energy. Eleanor filled me in on the basics. Show me what you have. For the next hour, they went through everything again. The photographs, the diary page, the threatening messages, the news about the safe deposit box. Miranda's expression grew more serious with each revelation. "This is significant," she finally said. "The copy of the will naming Victoria as beneficiary, the evidence of a pattern of intimidation, the fraudulent access to the safe deposit box. Combined with Dr. Chambers' potential testimony about witnessing the original will, we have grounds for a civil suit challenging Gregory Palmer's ownership of the entire art collection." "What about the threats against Marcus?" "I'll file for a protective order first thing tomorrow. The messages constitute harassment and possibly criminal intimidation." Miranda pulled out a legal pad. "But I have to be honest with you. Gregory Palmer has resources connections and 40 years of established ownership. This fight will be long and difficult." "I don't have resources," Keisha said quietly. "I don't have connections. I have a van, a sick child, and evidence I bought for $47. "You have something more important. You have the truth." Miranda met her eyes. "And sometimes that's enough." Late that night, after Marcus had fallen asleep in Eleanor's spare room, Keisha stood at the window, watching the street below. "You should rest," Eleanor said, coming up beside her. "I can't stop thinking about Victoria. She was smart, prepared, careful. She did everything right, and they still got to her. We don't know what happened to her, not for certain. She disappeared. Her evidence was hidden for 40 years. That's not a coincidence." Eleanor was quiet for a moment. "No, it's not." "What if the same thing happens to me? What if I've put Marcus in danger for nothing?" Victoria was alone. She had no one she could trust, no one willing to stand with her against the Palmers. Eleanor turned to face her. "You're not alone. You have me, Miranda, the documentation we've already created. If something happens to you, the truth doesn't disappear with you." "That's not exactly comforting." "It's not meant to be comforting. It's meant to be realistic." Eleanor's voice was gentle but firm. "You've stumbled into something dangerous. There's no way to make it safe. But there is a way to make it matter. Victoria spent 40 years waiting for someone to find her evidence. You found it. Now you have to decide what to do with it." Keisha looked back out at the street. A car passed slowly, headlights sweeping across the building. "Gregory Palmer has had 40 years of peace," she said. 40 years of enjoying what he stole. 40 years of thinking he got away with it. "Yes. I think that's long enough." Eleanor smiled. "Victoria would definitely have liked you." The next morning, Keisha's phone rang at 7. Mrs. Jenkins sounding frightened. "They came back. The lawyer. He had police with him this time. They're saying you stole property from the storage unit, that you need to return it immediately or face charges." "I didn't steal anything. I bought that unit legally." "I know, baby, but they're putting pressure everywhere. They talk to other shop owners in the area. They're asking questions about you, about Marcus, about where you sleep." Mrs. Jenkins' voice cracked. "I don't know what you found, but these people are serious. Please, be careful." Keisha hung up and turned to Eleanor and Miranda, who had arrived early for their strategy session. "They're using the police now, claiming I stole from the storage unit." Miranda's jaw tightened. "They're escalating. That's actually good." "How is that good?" "Because it means they're panicking. They wouldn't risk false police reports and fraudulent accusations unless they were terrified of what you have." Miranda opened her briefcase. "I'm filing our civil suit today. Once that's public, any action they take against you will look like retaliation. It changes the entire dynamic." "What about CPS? They threatened to report me." "Let them try. I've already prepared documentation of your care for Marcus, including statements from Mrs. Jenkins' library records showing his educational activities and medical records showing consistent treatment for his asthma." Miranda handed her a folder. "Courts don't look kindly on wealthy parties weaponizing child welfare services against poor parents. If anything, it will strengthen our case." Marcus emerged from the bedroom, chess set under his arm. "What's happening?" "The bad guys are making their move," Keisha told him. "But so are we." The boy nodded, not scared, just determined. "Good." 2 hours later, Miranda filed the civil suit. By noon, the story had leaked to 3 local news outlets. By evening, Gregory Palmer's lawyer was calling Miranda's office demanding a meeting. "They want to talk," Miranda reported. "Gregory Palmer himself, not Thornton. He's asking for a private conversation with you, Keisha." "Why me?" "I don't know, but I think we should find out." Miranda's expression was calculating. "Whatever Gregory has to say, it might give us leverage. I'll be present for any legal issues, but this is your decision." Keisha thought about Victoria. about the photographs showing Gregory's hatred, about 40 years of buried secrets finally coming to light. Set up the meeting. Are you sure? She looked at Marcus, at Eleanor, at the evidence spread across the table, at the life Victoria had sacrificed to protect the truth. I'm sure. It's time for Gregory Palmer to face what he did. The meeting was set for 3 o'clock the following afternoon at Miranda Chen's office. Keisha spent the morning preparing, though she wasn't sure what preparation meant when you were about to face a man who might have made a woman disappear 40 years ago. You don't have to do this, Eleanor said for the 3rd time that morning. We have enough evidence to proceed without ever speaking to him directly. I need to look him in the eye. Keisha was sorting through the photographs again, memorizing Victoria's face. I need to see what kind of man does something like this. Marcus was at the table working through chess problems on his magnetic board. He'd been quiet all morning, processing in his own way. Mom? Yeah, baby. What if he lies? What if he says things that make you doubt what we found? Keisha walked over and knelt beside him. Then I'll remember what Victoria wrote. She spent 40 years making sure the truth would survive. She didn't do that because she was confused or wrong. She did it because she knew exactly what Gregory was capable of. I wish I could come with you. I know, but this is something I have to do alone. She kissed his forehead. Eleanor will stay with you, and when I get back, we'll figure out our next move together. At 2:30, Miranda picked her up in a sleek black sedan. Ground rules, the lawyer said as they drove. I'll be in the room, but not participating unless something legally problematic comes up. Let him talk. The more he says, the more ammunition we have. What if he offers money again? Then we listen to the offer and evaluate, but don't commit to anything. Not today. What if he threatens me? Miranda glanced at her. Then we add it to the file and use it against him in court. Gregory Palmer is used to intimidating people. He's not used to people who fight back. They arrived at Miranda's office at 2:50. Gregory Palmer was already there, sitting alone in the conference room. No Thornton, no other lawyers. Just an old man in an expensive suit. Keisha's first thought was that he looked smaller than she expected. The photographs from 40 years ago showed a sharp, predatory presence. This man was thin, weathered, his hands showing a slight tremor as they rested on the table. But his eyes were exactly the same. Cold, calculating, watching her the way a snake watches a mouse. Miss Williams, his voice was cultured, controlled. Thank you for agreeing to meet. Mr. Palmer. She sat across from him, Miranda taking a seat slightly behind her. You wanted to talk. You're direct. I appreciate that. Gregory folded his hands. I'll be equally direct. This case, if it proceeds, will destroy everything I've built over 40 years. The gallery, my reputation, my family's legacy. Even if I ultimately prevail, the damage from publicity alone would be irreparable. That sounds like your problem, not mine. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe. He wasn't used to being spoken to this way. I'm prepared to offer a settlement, a generous one. He named a figure that made Miranda shift in her seat. $2 million, paid immediately, in exchange for all evidence from the storage unit and a signed confidentiality agreement. $2 million. More money than Keisha had ever imagined having. Enough to buy a house, pay for Marcus's education, never worry about food or medicine again. And what about Victoria? Gregory's expression didn't change. What about her? She disappeared, right after she threatened to expose you, right after she challenged your fraudulent will. Keisha leaned forward. What happened to her? I had nothing to do with Victoria Palmer's disappearance. Then why are you so afraid of what she left behind? Silence stretched between them. Keisha could hear the clock on the wall each tick, marking another second of one of Gregory Palmer's carefully constructed lies. I protected the collection, he finally said. Victoria was young and inexperienced. She would have sold pieces to fund her idealistic notions. The art would have been dispersed, lost forever. I preserved my uncle's vision. Your uncle's vision was for Victoria to inherit. The real will proves that. That will was never properly executed. Because you made sure it wasn't. Keisha pulled out one of the photographs. Victoria and Charles at the gallery looking at each other with obvious affection. He loved her. Not romantically, but genuinely. He trusted her with everything that mattered to him, and you stole it. Gregory's jaw tightened. You don't understand the complexities. Then explain them to me. The art world in the 1980s was different. A young woman like Victoria, no matter how intelligent, would have been destroyed by the dealers, the collectors, the critics. I convinced myself I was protecting both her and the collection. And when she became a threat, the question hung in the air. Gregory's hand, still resting on the table, trembled slightly more. I made mistakes. I said things I shouldn't have. I hired someone to follow her to find the evidence she claimed to have.
Charlene.
He looked away. The man was instructed to frighten her, nothing more. But something more happened. The last time I saw Victoria was September 15th, 1984. Gregory's voice was quieter now, older. She came to the gallery after hours. She was furious. She'd discovered I was having her followed. She threatened to go to the police about everything. The will, the embezzlement, the fraud. What did you do? I lost my temper. I made threats of my own, more explicit than before. He met her eyes. She left, still angry, still determined. 3 days later, she didn't show up for work. Her apartment was empty. Some of her belongings were gone. And you told the police she was suicidal. It was the simplest explanation. It was a lie. I didn't know what happened to her. Gregory's voice cracked slightly. I still don't. That's the truth. I committed fraud. I stole Victoria's inheritance. I threatened and intimidated her. But I did not physically harm her. Whatever happened after she left the gallery that night, it wasn't by my hand. Keisha studied him. The trembling hands, the aged face, the 40 years of secrets finally spilling out. Was he telling the truth, or was this another manipulation from a man who'd spent his life manipulating your $2 million? She said slowly, It's not enough. $3 million, then, that's my absolute limit. I'm not negotiating the amount. Keisha stood up. Victoria Palmer deserves justice. Your uncle's wishes deserve to be honored, and the truth deserves to be known. What exactly are you proposing? Full accounting of every piece from Charles's collection that you've sold. Public acknowledgement that Victoria was the rightful heir. Cooperation with the police investigation into her disappearance. She paused. And the remaining collection donated to a museum in both Charles and Victoria's names. Gregory's face went pale. That's everything. My entire legacy. It was never your legacy to begin with. And in return, Miranda will advise the district attorney's office that you've cooperated fully. We won't push for criminal charges beyond what the law requires. Keisha's voice softened slightly. And you can receive credit for finally doing the right thing. You're asking me to destroy myself. I'm giving you a chance to make amends, to tell the truth before someone else does. She gathered the photographs. You have 48 hours to decide. After that, we proceed with the full lawsuit and everything becomes public. She turned to leave. Wait. Gregory's voice stopped her at the door. You remind me of her, you know. Victoria. Not in appearance, but in spirit. The same determination, the same refusal to back down. I'm nothing like Victoria. She had everything to lose and fought anyway. I have nothing to lose. That makes me more dangerous. She walked out without looking back. In the car, Miranda let out a long breath. That was extraordinary. Did I make a mistake? Should I have taken the money? $3 million is a lot of money, but what you did in there was worth more. Miranda pulled into traffic. You made him confess, on the record. He admitted to fraud, intimidation, and hiring someone to follow Victoria. That's huge. He also denied hurting her. He denied physically harming her. That's a careful distinction. Miranda glanced at her. Lawyers know how to phrase things. He could have arranged for someone else to do whatever was done to Victoria. His denial doesn't clear him. Keisha's phone buzzed. A text from Eleanor. Come back quickly. We found something. 20 minutes later, they were at Eleanor's apartment. The journalist was practically vibrating with excitement. Dr. Ruth Chambers, we found her. The doctor who witnessed the will. She's alive. 86 years old, living in a retirement community in Pasadena. I called her this morning. Eleanor's eyes were bright. She remembers everything, and she's willing to testify. Marcus jumped up from the table. Does she know what happened to Victoria? She knows something. She wouldn't say what over the phone, but she agreed to meet us tomorrow. Eleanor turned to Keisha. She said she's been waiting 40 years for someone to ask the right questions. That night, Keisha couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the meeting with Gregory in her mind. His trembling hands, his careful denials, the way he'd looked at her when she mentioned Victoria's name. At 2 a.m, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't look, but something made her check. The message wasn't a threat this time. It was a photograph. Victoria Palmer standing in front of what looked like a small cottage somewhere tropical, palm trees in the background, blue sky, and a date stamp in the corner, September 1985, 1 year after she'd supposedly disappeared. Keisha sat up so fast she woke Marcus. "Mom, what's wrong?" "Nothing, baby. Go back to sleep." But her hands were shaking as she stared at the photograph. Victoria was alive in this picture. Alive and somewhere far from Los Angeles 1 year after vanishing. A second message followed. "Some secrets are better left buried, for everyone's sake." Who sent this? And what did it mean? Had Victoria not been killed? Had she run? And if she was alive in 1985, was she still alive now? The next morning, Keisha showed Eleanor and Miranda the photograph. "This changes everything," Eleanor whispered. "Does it prove she wasn't murdered? It proves she was alive a year after she disappeared, but that doesn't mean she stayed alive." Miranda studied the image carefully. "This could have been sent by Gregory to muddy the waters, to make us doubt our case. Or it could be real. Either way, we need to find out who sent it." Eleanor took the phone. "I have contacts who can trace numbers, and we need to talk to Dr. Chambers today. She might know something about this." Dr. Ruth Chambers lived in a quiet retirement community, her apartment filled with books, medical journals, and art. She greeted them with sharp eyes and a firm handshake. "You must be Keisha. Eleanor told me about you." "Thank you for seeing us, Dr. Chambers." "I've been waiting 40 years for someone to care about Victoria's story." The elderly woman gestured for them to sit. "I should have spoken up decades ago, but I was scared. Richard Thornton made sure of that." "He threatened you too." "He threatened everyone who knew the truth. My medical license, my reputation, I was close to retirement, had no family to support me." Dr. Chambers' voice was heavy with old shame. "So I stayed silent, and I've regretted it every day since." "Tell us about the will, the real will." "I witnessed it myself along with Nathaniel Green, Charles's accountant. It was signed 2 weeks before Charles died. He was completely lucid, completely determined." Dr. Chambers leaned forward. Charles had discovered that Gregory was embezzling from the gallery, tens of thousands of dollars over several years. He was furious. Why didn't he press charges? Because a scandal would have damaged the gallery's reputation, and Charles was dying. He didn't have the energy for a legal battle. The doctor's expression hardened. So instead, he changed his will. The gallery would go to Gregory, but the personal collection, the heart of everything Charles had built, would go to Victoria. And Gregory found out. He was enraged. He confronted Charles, begged him to reconsider. Charles refused. Said Victoria understood the art in ways Gregory never would. Dr. Chambers paused. 2 weeks later, Charles was dead. Natural causes. His heart condition was advanced. I was his physician, I knew his prognosis, but the timing always troubled me. She met Keisha's eyes. "I have no proof of anything sinister, just doubts that never went away." "What about after Charles died?" "Gregory produced a different will, dated earlier, leaving everything to him. Victoria knew it was fraudulent. She challenged it quietly at first through legal channels." Dr. Chambers' voice dropped. Then she started receiving threats. Phone calls in the middle of the night. Someone following her. Her apartment broken into. Gregory admitted he hired someone to follow her. I'm not surprised. He was desperate. The doctor reached into a drawer and pulled out an envelope. "Victoria gave me this 2 weeks before she disappeared. She said to keep it safe, only open it if something happened to her." Keisha took the envelope carefully. Inside was a handwritten letter. "Dear Dr. Chambers, if you're reading this, something has happened to me. Gregory's threats have escalated. I fear for my safety, but I cannot abandon Charles's wishes. The evidence is secured in multiple locations. The original will is in Box 891 at First National. Additional documentation is hidden where Gregory would never look among things he would consider worthless. If I disappear, please know it was not by choice. Please ensure that Charles's true legacy is preserved." She knew something was going to happen to her, Keisha said quietly. She was preparing for the worst while hoping for the best. Dr. Chambers' eyes were wet. "I should have done something. Gone to the police, the press, anyone. Instead, I let Thornton scare me into silence." "You're speaking now. That matters." "Does it? 40 years too late?" "The truth doesn't expire." Keisha pulled out her phone and showed the doctor the photograph of Victoria in front of the tropical cottage. "Do you recognize this? Was Victoria ever somewhere like this?" Dr. Chambers studied the image, her brow furrowing. Charles had a property, a beach house he'd bought in the 1970s. Not in California, somewhere in Mexico, I think. He mentioned it once said it was his escape from the art world. Mexico. I never knew the exact location, but if Victoria knew about it, if she had access to it... The doctor trailed off, the implications hanging in the air. She might have run instead of being killed. It's possible Victoria was smart. If she knew Gregory was planning something, she might have staged her own disappearance. But why not come back? Why not expose him once she was safe? Because she was never safe, not as long as Gregory had power and money. Dr. Chambers handed back the phone. Maybe she decided that surviving and hiding was better than dying for justice. Keisha thought about that during the drive back. A woman who'd given up everything, even her own identity, to escape a man who wanted her silenced, who'd spent 40 years waiting and hoping that someone would find her hidden evidence, who might still be alive somewhere watching all of this unfold. Her phone buzzed. Miranda's number. Gregory Palmer called. He's accepting your terms. All of them. Almost. He wants to negotiate the museum donation, says he'll give the collection to a foundation instead, with some personal pieces retained. Miranda's voice was cautious. It's not everything you asked for, but it's close. When does he want to finalize? Tomorrow morning, his office with Thornton present. A pause. Something feels wrong, Keisha. This is too fast, too easy. Gregory Palmer doesn't surrender. He's planning something. Then we need to be ready for whatever it is. That night, Eleanor's contact traced the unknown number that had sent the photograph. The results were puzzling. It's a burner phone, purchased 2 days ago in Tijuana. Eleanor showed her the report. Someone went to Mexico specifically to send you that picture. Gregory? Maybe. Or someone working for him. Or... Eleanor hesitated. Someone else entirely. Someone who's been watching this situation develop. Victoria. I don't want to speculate, but we need to consider every possibility. Keisha looked at Marcus, who'd fallen asleep on the couch with his chess set beside him. In 2 days, their entire world had been turned upside down. A storage unit purchase had become a 40-year-old mystery. A homeless mother had become a threat to one of LA's wealthiest families. And somewhere possibly a woman who'd been presumed dead might still be alive. What do I do? Keisha asked Eleanor. What would you do? I would go to that meeting tomorrow and watch Gregory Palmer very carefully. I would listen to every word he says and doesn't say, and I would be ready to walk away if anything feels wrong. And the photograph? I would keep it secret for now. It's a card we might need to play later. Eleanor put her hand on Keisha's shoulder. You've already done more than anyone could have expected. Victoria chose well when she hid that evidence. She chose someone who wouldn't give up. I'm just trying to survive, same as always. No, Eleanor's voice was firm. You're doing something much harder than surviving. You're fighting for justice, for someone you never met who died or disappeared before you were born. That's not survival, that's courage. The meeting the next morning was at the Palmer Gallery. Keisha had never been there before, and she wasn't prepared for the beauty of it. Walls covered with paintings worth millions, sculptures that had survived centuries, the accumulated wealth of a lifetime of collecting, and all of it built on lies. Gregory Palmer sat in his office looking somehow older than he had 2 days ago. Richard Thornton stood behind him like a guard dog. Miss Williams, thank you for coming. Let's get this over with, Gregory nodded slowly. I've had time to reflect on your proposal, on everything that's happened. He paused. I've decided to accept your terms, all of them. Keisha felt her heart skip. All of them. Full disclosure of every sale from Charles's collection. Public acknowledgement that Victoria was the rightful heir. Cooperation with any police investigation. His voice was steady but tired. And the remaining collection donated to a museum in both my uncle's and Victoria's names. Why? The question seemed to surprise him. Because you were right. It was never my legacy. I've spent 40 years pretending otherwise, but you can't build something real on a foundation of lies. He looked at his hands still trembling. I'm 74 years old. I've lived with this secret my entire adult life. I'm tired of it. And what about Victoria? What really happened to her? Gregory met her eyes. I don't know. That's the truth. I made her life hell. I threatened her. I had her followed. But I did not have her killed. Whatever happened after she left the gallery that night, it wasn't by my order. Then who? I've wondered that myself for 40 years. He glanced at Thornton. Richard's methods were sometimes aggressive, but he assured me he never crossed certain lines. Thornton's face was stone. "I don't harm women. I scare them. There's a difference." "That's not much of a moral distinction," Miranda said coldly. "It's the truth, whatever it's worth." Keisha studied both men. Gregory looked defeated, genuinely ready to surrender. But Thornton was different. His eyes were calculating, watching her the way he probably watched everyone, looking for weakness. "I want everything in writing," she said. "Notarized, witnessed, filed with the court before any press announcements." "Of course." "And I want access to all of your records from 1984. Every document, every communication, every financial transaction related to Victoria or the estate." Gregory hesitated. "That's extensive." "It's necessary. If you want this settlement to hold, there can't be any more surprises." Thornton stepped forward. "That's unreasonable. We're offering you everything you asked for. I'm asking for transparency. If you have nothing to hide, it shouldn't be a problem." The lawyer's eyes narrowed. "This isn't a negotiation anymore. You've gotten what you wanted. Take it and walk away." "I'll walk away when I have the truth, all of it." Gregory held up his hand, stopping Thornton. "She's right. Open the files. All of them." "Sir, that's not advisable." "Richard, I've spent 40 years following your advice. Look where it's gotten me." Gregory's voice hardened. "Open the files." The tension in the room was palpable. Thornton's jaw worked silently, years of careful protection crumbling in an instant. "There are things in those files that could damage us both," the lawyer said quietly to Gregory. "Things beyond Victoria." "Then let them be damaged. I'm done hiding." Thornton stared at his client for a long moment. Then something shifted in his expression, something that made Keisha's instincts scream danger. "Very well, I'll have everything sent to Miss Williams' attorney by end of business today." He gathered his briefcase. "But I want it on record that I advised against this." He left without another word. Gregory watched him go, then turned back to Keisha. "You should know something. Richard has been more than my lawyer for 40 years. He's been the keeper of my secrets, the protector of my interests." He paused. "Sometimes I wonder who really holds the power in our relationship." "What do you mean?" "I mean that Richard Thornton has handled things I never asked about, never wanted to ask about." Gregory's voice was barely above a whisper. "If something happened to Victoria beyond what I know, or Richard would be the one to ask." The words hung in the air like a confession. "Are you saying your lawyer might have done something to Victoria?" "I'm saying I honestly don't know what Richard is capable of. I've spent 40 years not knowing. It was easier that way." Gregory stood slowly, his old bones creaking. "But you deserve to know that there might be more truth to find, and it might not be in my files." He walked out, leaving Keisha alone with Miranda. "What just happened?" Keisha asked. "Gregory Palmer just threw his lawyer under the bus." Miranda was already on her phone. "We need to get those files before Thornton has a chance to clean them, and we need to have someone watching him." "You think he'd actually hurt someone after all this time?" "I think a man who's spent 40 years protecting secrets will do anything to keep them protected, especially if those secrets include murder." They left the gallery quickly. In the car, Keisha's phone buzzed again. Same unknown number as before. Another photograph. This one showed Thornton much younger getting into a car with someone. The date stamp read September 18th, 1984, 3 days after Victoria disappeared. And in the background, barely visible, was a woman who looked exactly like Victoria Palmer. Keisha's hands shook as she showed Miranda. She was alive 3 days later, and Thornton knew it. This changes everything. Miranda pulled over, staring at the image. If Victoria didn't disappear voluntarily, if Thornton took her somewhere, then Gregory wasn't the only one involved, maybe not even the main one. We need to find out who's sending these photographs, and we need to do it now. Keisha looked at the image again. Victoria's face in the background caught in a moment that proved she'd survived longer than anyone knew. Somewhere out there, someone had the truth, and they were revealing it piece by piece. The question was why, and whether Keisha would live long enough to find out. That evening, as she sat with Marcus in Eleanor's apartment, her phone buzzed one more time. The message was simple. "You're getting close. Be careful who you trust. Not everyone wants the truth to come out. Some people prefer their ghosts stay buried." And then a final photograph. Victoria Palmer, older now, silver-haired, standing in front of what looked like a small art gallery. The location was unclear, but there was a sign visible in one corner. Galleria de Esperanza. Gallery of Hope. Keisha stared at the image, her heart pounding. Victoria wasn't a ghost. She was alive. Keisha couldn't breathe. She stared at the photograph, at the silver-haired woman standing in front of a small gallery, at the sign reading Galeria de Esperanza. 40 years. Victoria Palmer had been alive for 40 years, while everyone believed she was dead. Marcus was beside her looking at the phone. Is that her? Is that Victoria? I think so. She's old now, like a grandma. She would be in her late 60s. Keisha's mind was racing. If she's been alive this whole time, why didn't she come back? Why didn't she expose Gregory herself? Eleanor took the phone, studying the image. Because she was scared, or because she couldn't prove what happened, or because... She trailed off. Because someone made sure she couldn't come back, Miranda finished. Thornton, if he was involved in her disappearance, he might have threatened her, told her that if she ever surfaced, something would happen to her. Or to someone she loved. Keisha thought of Marcus, of how quickly she'd do anything to protect him. Maybe there was someone Victoria was protecting too. The next morning came too quickly. Keisha had barely slept, the photograph cycling through her mind in an endless loop. Victoria alive. Thornton with her 3 days after the disappearance. The Gallery of Hope in an unknown location. Eleanor was already awake, hunched over her laptop. I've been searching all night. Galeria de Esperanza. There are 3 in Mexico with that name, 2 in Central America, and 1 in Spain. She rubbed her tired eyes. Without more context, we can't narrow it down. What about the photograph itself? Is there anything else that could help? The architecture looks Mexican. The vegetation, too. My best guess is somewhere on the Pacific coast, maybe Oaxaca or Guerrero. Eleanor turned the laptop toward Keisha. But that's still thousands of square miles. Miranda arrived at 8 with news. Thornton's files arrived last night, all 20 boxes of them. She set down her briefcase. My team started reviewing at midnight. We've already found 3 instances of payments to unnamed recipients in 1984. Cash withdrawals totaling over $50,000 between September and December. When Victoria disappeared. Exactly, and here's the interesting part. Miranda pulled out a document. One of those payments was made to a company called Pacific Transit Services, a shipping company that operated between Los Angeles and various ports in Mexico. Keisha's heart jumped. He shipped her out of the country. That's my theory. Thornton didn't kill Victoria. He made her disappear, relocated her somewhere she couldn't cause trouble. Miranda's expression was grim. It's actually more insidious than murder. He erased her entire life. But she's still alive, after all these years. Which means she might be willing to testify if we can find her. Eleanor's phone rang. She answered, listened for a moment, then her face went pale. That was my contact at the police department. Richard Thornton was found dead this morning. Apparent suicide, gunshot wound to the head. The room fell silent. Suicide, Keisha finally said. You don't believe that. I don't know what to believe anymore. Eleanor set down her phone. But the timing is very convenient. Gregory throws him under the bus yesterday, the files get released last night, and by this morning the one man who knows the full truth is dead. Gregory had him killed? Or Thornton knew what was coming and took the easy way out. Miranda was already on her phone. I need to call the district attorney. This changes everything. While Miranda made calls, Keisha sat with Marcus. The boy was quiet, processing everything he'd overheard. The bad lawyer is dead, he said. Yes? Did the old man have him killed? We don't know that. It could have been suicide. Marcus looked at her with those 2 wise eyes. Do you believe that? Keisha didn't answer. She didn't have to. 2 hours later, the police arrived at Eleanor's apartment. 2 detectives, one young and eager, one older and suspicious. Miss Williams, I'm Detective Reyes. This is Detective Cooper. We need to ask you some questions about Richard Thornton. I already told you everything I know on the phone, Eleanor interrupted. Miss Williams met him exactly once yesterday morning. We're aware, but given the nature of your civil suit against the Palmer estate, we need to establish everyone's whereabouts last night. Detective Cooper's eyes swept the apartment, taking in the evidence boxes the photographs spread across the table. You seem to be conducting quite an investigation of your own. We're pursuing a 40-year-old mystery. That's not illegal. No, but obstruction of justice is. The detective stepped closer. If you have evidence related to Mr. Thornton's death or to the original disappearance of Victoria Palmer, you're legally obligated to share it. Keisha made a decision. We have photographs. Mom, Marcus whispered. It's okay, baby. She pulled out her phone and showed the detectives the images. Victoria alive in 1980. Thornton with her 3 days after the disappearance. The Gallery of Hope. Detective Reyes studied the photographs carefully. Where did you get these? They were sent to me anonymously. Same number sent all 3. And you believe this woman is Victoria Palmer? I believe she's alive, or was recently. Keisha pointed to the final image. This one looks recent. Within the last few years, maybe. The detectives exchanged glances. Something passed between them, some unspoken communication. Miss Williams, we need to inform you of something. Detective Cooper's voice had changed, become more formal. We received a call this morning from the Mexican consulate. A woman identifying herself as Victoria Palmer contacted them yesterday asking about the process for returning to the United States after a prolonged absence. Keisha's legs went weak. She's coming back. She requested legal protection, said she has information about crimes committed in Los Angeles in 1984. The detective paused. She specifically asked to speak with the person who found her storage unit. The next several hours were a blur of phone calls, legal consultations, and careful planning. Miranda worked with the district attorney's office to arrange protection for Victoria's return. Eleanor coordinated with her media contacts to control the story when it broke, and Keisha waited. At 4 in the afternoon, her phone rang. Unknown number, but different from before. Miss Williams? The voice was female, older, with a trace of accent that came from decades in another country. My name is Victoria Palmer. I believe you found something that belongs to me. Keisha's hand trembled. Yes, I did. I've waited 40 years for someone to open that storage unit. 40 years of hoping and fearing. Victoria's voice cracked slightly. I need to know. What did you find? Keisha told her. The trunk, the photographs, the diary page, the key to the safe deposit box. The evidence that Victoria had so carefully preserved. There was silence on the other end. Then a sound that might have been crying. He took everything from me. Charles's love, my future, my entire life. I've spent 40 years hiding, afraid that if I came back, they'd finish what they started. What did they do to you? Thornton. It was Thornton. Victoria's voice hardened. Gregory threatened me, made my life hell. But it was Thornton who came to my apartment that night. Told me that if I didn't disappear, I'd be killed. He had photographs of my mother, my sister. Said they'd be hurt if I didn't cooperate. So you ran. I had no choice. He gave me money, a new identity, put me on a ship to Mexico. Told me that if I ever came back, if I ever contacted anyone from my old life, my family would pay the price. A bitter laugh. I've spent 40 years watching from a distance, waiting for someone to find the truth, waiting for someone brave enough to fight. And you sent me those photographs? I had to know who you were. Had to see if you were someone I could trust. Victoria paused. A homeless mother who paid $47 for a storage unit. You shouldn't have stood a chance against Gregory and his lawyers. But you didn't give up. I couldn't. My son kept reminding me that the truth matters. Your son sounds wise. He is, too wise sometimes. Miss Williams, I'm coming back to Los Angeles. The police have arranged protection, but I need to ask you something first. Anything. Will you meet me? When I arrive, I want to meet the woman who found my life in a box. Keisha didn't hesitate. Yes, I'll be there. The next day was chaos. News of Thornton's death had broken along with rumors about the Palmer estate case. Reporters camped outside Eleanor's building, shouting questions whenever anyone entered or left. Marcus handled it better than Keisha expected. They're just curious, he said, peeking through the curtains at the crowd below. Like me when I find a really good mystery book. This isn't a book, baby. I know, but it has the same parts. A mystery, a villain, someone who got hurt, and someone trying to make it right. He looked at her seriously. We're the people trying to make it right. At noon, Miranda called with an update. Gregory Palmer is requesting a meeting. He says he has information about Thornton's activities that we need to hear. Do you trust him? I don't trust anyone involved in this mess, but his lawyer is dead, his secrets are coming out, and Victoria is about to return. He's running out of options. Set up the meeting. Gregory Palmer looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. His expensive suit was rumpled, his hands shaking worse than before, his eyes red from what might have been crying or sleeplessness. Miss Williams, thank you for coming. This is your last chance to tell the truth, Mr. Palmer? All of it? I know. He gestured for her to sit. I received a call this morning from Detective Reyes. Victoria is alive. She's been alive all these years. Yes. And Richard? His voice broke. Richard didn't kill himself. He was murdered. Keisha went cold. How do you know that? Because I know who did it. Gregory's hands were shaking badly now. There's something I haven't told you. Something I haven't told anyone for 40 years. What? Richard wasn't working on alone when Victoria disappeared. He had a partner. Someone who helped him arrange everything, who knew where Victoria was being kept, who made sure she stayed quiet all these years. Who? Gregory closed his eyes. My wife, Catherine Palmer. The revelation hit Keisha like a physical blow. Your wife was involved. Catherine was always ambitious, more than me even. When Charles changed his will, when it looked like everything we'd worked for was going to Victoria, Catherine was the one who suggested we take action. Gregory's voice was hollow. I thought she just meant legal challenges, pressure. I didn't know she and Richard had other plans. What kind of plans, Amlas? Catherine knew people from her family, people who could make problems disappear. He met Keisha's eyes. She arranged Victoria's removal, handled the logistics. Richard was just the face, the one who delivered the threats. But Catherine was the architect. And she's still alive. Very much so, living in our Malibu house enjoying the fruits of crimes she committed 40 years ago. Gregory's expression was bitter. When you started investigating, when the truth started coming out, Catherine panicked. She killed Richard to keep him from talking. You have proof of this. Richard called me the night before he died. Said Catherine had been contacting him, pressuring him to handle the situation the way they handled Victoria. Gregory pulled out his phone. I recorded the call. I didn't know what else to do. He played the recording. Thornton's voice frightened and angry. Gregory, your wife is out of control. She's talking about eliminating witnesses. She mentioned the Williams woman and her son. I won't be part of this anymore. Gregory's response was panicked. Richard, calm down. Catherine wouldn't actually hurt anyone. You don't know her like I do. You never have. Thornton's voice dropped. 40 years ago, I thought we were just scaring Victoria into leaving, but Catherine took it further. She had people following Victoria for years, making sure she stayed hidden, threatening her family whenever she tried to surface. This wasn't about protecting you, Gregory. It was about power. Catherine liked having that control. What are you going to do, Dick? I'm going to the police. Tomorrow morning, I'll tell them everything. A pause. If something happens to me tonight, you know who's responsible. The recording ended. Gregory set down the phone with trembling hands. He called me at 9 p.m. By 6 the next morning, he was dead. And you didn't go to the police. I was terrified. If Catherine could kill Richard, someone she'd worked with for 40 years, she could kill me too. He looked at her desperately. But I can't stay silent anymore. Not when she might go after you next. Me. You're the biggest threat to everything she's built. The homeless mother who found the evidence no one was supposed to find. Catherine won't let you expose her. Gregory stood up abruptly. You need to be careful. You and your son. Keisha's blood went cold. Is she watching us? She has people everywhere. Always has. He moved toward the door. I'm going to the police now. I'll give them the recording to tell them everything. But you need to protect yourself. Get somewhere safe. Don't trust anyone. He was gone before she could respond. Keisha called Miranda immediately. Catherine Palmer. Gregory says she's behind everything. Thornton's death, Victoria's disappearance, all of it. Where are you now? Still at Gregory's office. Miranda, he said Catherine might come after me and Marcus. Get back to Eleanor's. I'll meet you there with police escort. Miranda's voice was tight. Don't stop for anything. Keisha ran to her car, heart pounding. The streets seemed different now, every passing vehicle a potential threat, every person a possible watcher. Catherine Palmer had eyes everywhere, had been running this operation for 40 years, and now Keisha was in her crosshairs. She made it back to Eleanor's apartment in record time, bursting through the door, to find Marcus sitting calmly at the table playing chess. Mom, what's wrong? Where's Eleanor? She went to get groceries, said she'd be back in an hour. Keisha's phone rang. Unknown number, but different from Victoria's. She answered. Miss Williams. The voice was female, cultured cold. My name is Catherine Palmer. I believe we need to talk. I have nothing to say to you. Then listen. Catherine's voice was perfectly controlled. You've caused quite a bit of trouble over the past week. Dug up secrets that should have stayed buried. Cost me a very useful associate. A pause. I'm calling to offer you a way out. I'm not interested in your offers. You should be, because the alternative is very unpleasant. Catherine's voice hardened. I know where you are. I know your son is with you. I know that Eleanor Gray is currently at the Whole Foods on Vermont, completely unprotected." Keisha's blood turned to ice. "What do you want?" "The evidence. Everything you found in that storage unit. Every photograph, every document, every piece of Victoria's little insurance policy." Catherine laughed softly. "Bring it to me and I'll let you and your son walk away. You can go back to living in your van, struggling to survive. No one will bother you again." "And if I refuse, then things get very messy for everyone." Catherine's voice dropped to a whisper. "I've been doing this for 40 years, Miss Williams. I've made people disappear. I've destroyed lives. Do you really think a homeless woman with a sick child can stop me?" Keisha looked at Marcus, at his innocent face, at the trust in his eyes. Everything she'd fought for, everything she'd risked, came down to this moment. "Victoria is coming back," she said. "She's going to tell everyone what you did. Victoria will never reach Los Angeles. My people will make sure of that." Catherine's confidence was absolute. "You have 1 hour. Bring the evidence to the Palmer Gallery. Come alone, or watch everything you love burn." The line went dead. Marcus was watching her, his small face serious. "That was the bad woman, wasn't it?" "Yes." "What did she want?" "The evidence, all of it." Keisha knelt beside him. "Baby, I need you to listen to me very carefully. I'm going to call Miranda and tell her what just happened. Then I need you to stay here, lock the door, and don't open it for anyone except Eleanor or the police." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to finish this." "Mom, no!" Marcus grabbed her arm. "You can't go alone. She'll hurt you." "If I don't go, she'll hurt you. She'll hurt Eleanor. She'll hurt Victoria before she can get here." Keisha cupped his face in her hands. "I have spent my entire life being overlooked and underestimated. People like Catherine Palmer don't think I'm worth worrying about. That's exactly why I can beat her." "But Mom..." "Marcus, listen to me." Her voice was fierce. "Victoria spent 40 years waiting for someone to find her evidence. She trusted that the right person would come along. I'm not going to let her down. I'm not going to let you down, and I'm not going to let some rich woman who thinks she's above the law take everything from us." Tears were streaming down Marcus's face, but he nodded. "You're the bravest person I know, Mom." "I learned from you." She kissed his forehead. "Now lock this door and don't open it until you hear my voice." She made the calls quickly, Miranda explaining the situation, Detective Reyes requesting immediate protection for Marcus and Eleanor, and one final call to a number she'd memorized. Victoria answered on the first ring. "Miss Williams." "Catherine Palmer just threatened my son. She's going to try to stop you from reaching Los Angeles. She killed Thornton and she won't hesitate to kill again." "I know. I've spent 40 years knowing exactly what Catherine is capable of." Victoria's voice was calm, almost peaceful. "But I'm not running anymore. I'm on a flight right now. I'll land in 3 hours." "She said her people will stop you." "Let them try." There was steel in Victoria's voice. "I've survived this long by being careful, but I've also spent 40 years planning for this moment. Catherine thinks she's the only one with resources. She's wrong." "What do you mean?" "I'll explain when I see you. For now, do whatever you need to do to protect your son. And Miss Williams." "Yes." "Thank you for everything. Whatever happens next, thank you for not giving up." The line went dead. Keisha gathered the evidence. The photographs, the documents, the diary page. Everything Victoria had hidden, everything Catherine wanted destroyed. But she didn't put it in a bag to deliver. Instead, she photographed every single item, uploaded the images to 3 different cloud services, and sent copies to Miranda Eleanor and Detective Reyes. Catherine Palmer wanted the evidence, she could have it. But destroying the physical copies wouldn't matter anymore. The truth was already out. Then Keisha did something she'd never done before in her life. She called a reporter. "This is Elena Vasquez at the LA Times." "Miss Vasquez, my name is Keisha Williams. I have a story about the Palmer family that you're going to want to hear, but I need you to do something first." "I'm listening." "In exactly 90 minutes, I want you at the Palmer Gallery with a camera crew. Whatever happens in there, I want it documented. What's going to happen? Justice, 40 years late." She hung up and walked out the door. The Palmer Gallery was empty when Keisha arrived, or at least it appeared to be. She walked through the entrance past the security desk into the main exhibition hall with its millions of dollars worth of art. "Mrs. Palmer," her voice echoed off the walls. "I'm here." Footsteps behind her. Keisha turned. Catherine Palmer was smaller than she'd expected. Elegant, well-preserved, dressed in designer clothes that cost more than Keisha had made in her best year. But her eyes were the same cold, calculating eyes she'd seen in photographs of Gregory. The same predator's gaze. "You came? I wasn't sure you would." "You threatened my son. Of course I came." "The evidence," Keisha held up a bag. "Right here." Catherine extended her hand. "Give it to me." "First tell me something. What really happened to Victoria? You arranged her disappearance. You've been controlling her for 40 years. But why not just kill her?" Catherine's smile was chilling. "Because death is simple, permanent. But control lasts forever." She stepped closer. Every year, Victoria received a photograph of her mother, her sister, her niece. Every year, she was reminded of what would happen if she ever tried to come back. Killing her would have ended my power over her. Keeping her alive, afraid, isolated, that was much more satisfying. "You're a monster." "I'm a survivor, just like you." Catherine's eyes swept over Keisha dismissively. "We're not so different, Miss Williams. We both do what we have to do to protect what's ours. You destroyed a woman's life for money and status. I secured my family's legacy. Victoria would have squandered everything Charles built, given it away to museums and charities, sold pieces to fund idealistic projects." Catherine's voice dripped contempt. "She didn't deserve what Charles left her. She was a secretary, a nobody, like you." "I'd rather be a nobody than a murderer." "Richard's death was unfortunate but necessary. He was going to talk. I couldn't allow that." Catherine held out her hand again. "Now, the evidence, unless you'd like me to make a phone call." "What phone call?" "The one that sends my people to Eleanor Gray's apartment, where your son is hiding right now." Catherine's smile widened. "Did you think I didn't know I've been watching you since the moment you bid on that storage unit? I know everything about you, Miss Williams. Your routine, your weaknesses, your desperate love for that asthmatic little boy." Keisha's hand tightened on the bag. "Give me the evidence. Walk away. Live your pathetic little life." Catherine's voice hardened. "Or watch everyone you love suffer for your stubbornness." For a long moment, Keisha didn't move. Then she smiled. "You know what, Mrs. Palmer, I've spent my whole life being underestimated. Landlords who thought I wouldn't fight eviction. Employers who thought I wouldn't notice being cheated. Rich people who thought the homeless woman cleaning their house couldn't understand what she was seeing." She opened the bag and dumped the contents on the floor. Photographs scattered across the marble documents fluttered the diary page landed face up. "But here's what you don't understand. I've already won." Catherine's expression flickered. "What are you talking about? Every piece of evidence in that bag has been photographed, uploaded, and sent to multiple recipients. Your husband is at the police station right now giving a statement about your role in Thornton's death. Detective Reyes has officers on their way here as we speak." Keisha's smile widened. "And in about 30 seconds, a camera crew from the LA Times is going to walk through that door." On cue, the gallery doors burst open. Elena Vasquez and her team rushed in, cameras already rolling. Catherine's face went white. "You set me up." "No, Mrs. Palmer. You set yourself up, 40 years ago when you decided to destroy an innocent woman's life." Keisha stepped back as Detective Reyes and his team entered behind the news crew. "I just made sure the world would finally know the truth." "Catherine Palmer." Detective Reyes moved forward with handcuffs. "You're under arrest for the murder of Richard Thornton and for conspiracy in the kidnapping and false imprisonment of Victoria Palmer." "This is absurd. You have no proof." "Statement?" "We have your husband's testimony, Thornton's recorded accusations, and 40 years of evidence that Victoria spent decades preserving." Reyes snapped the cuffs onto her wrists. "You have the right to remain silent." As they led Catherine away, she turned back to Keisha with pure hatred in her eyes. "You think this is over? You think you've won? You're nothing, a homeless nobody who got lucky. My lawyers will destroy everything you've built. I'll be out by morning." Keisha watched her go, feeling the weight of 40 years lift from shoulders that had never carried it. "Maybe," she said quietly, "but Victoria will be here by then, and she's not afraid of you anymore." 3 hours later, Keisha stood at LAX Marcus beside her, waiting. The flight from Mexico City had landed 20 minutes ago. Customs was processing a special passenger, one who'd spent 40 years in exile and was finally coming home. "Mom, is that her—" Keisha looked up. Walking through the arrivals gate was an older woman with silver hair and familiar, intelligent eyes. The same eyes from the photograph in the locket, aged but unchanged in their determination. Victoria Palmer stopped when she saw them. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Two women who'd never met, but whose lives had become intertwined across 4 decades. Then Victoria smiled. You must be Keisha Williams. And you're Victoria Palmer. I've waited a very long time to say this. Victoria took Keisha's hands in hers. Thank you. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for seeing value where others saw trash. Thank you for believing in a woman you'd never met. Keisha felt tears streaming down her face. You waited 40 years. You never stopped hoping. I knew someone would come, someone who would understand. Victoria looked at Marcus at his bright, curious eyes. And this must be the young man who helped solve the mystery. Marcus nodded shyly. I found some of the clues. Then you're a hero, too. Victoria knelt to his level. You know what Charles used to say? He said that art finds the people who are meant to appreciate it. The same is true of truth. It finds the people brave enough to recognize it. She stood and turned back to Keisha. There's so much to do, statements to give testimony, to provide a legacy to reclaim. But first I need to see it. The storage unit, the evidence, everything I left behind. The police have most of it now, but I can show you what we found, how you hid everything. I want to understand how it felt, to discover those things, to piece together a dead woman's life. Victoria's voice cracked. I've been a ghost for so long. I need to remember what it feels like to be real. They walked out of the airport together, Keisha, Marcus, and the woman whose life had been stolen 40 years ago. Outside, Eleanor was waiting with Miranda. Victoria. Eleanor stepped forward, tears in her eyes. I wrote that article in 1984. I asked questions everyone wanted to ignore. I know, I read everything you wrote. Victoria embraced her. You were the only one who cared enough to look deeper. The only one who didn't accept the lies. I should have done more. You did what you could. And now together we'll finish it. Miranda stepped forward with a folder. Miss Palmer, I'm handling the legal aspects of your return. There's a lot to discuss, but the most important thing you should know is this: Gregory has agreed to restore Charles's original will. The collection will go to you as Charles intended. Victoria was silent for a moment. Then she shook her head. I don't want the collection, not anymore. What do you mean? Charles left me those paintings because he trusted me to preserve them. But I'm 68 years old. I've spent more of my life in hiding than in the world I was supposed to inhabit. Victoria looked at Keisha. I want to donate the collection to a museum, in Charles's name and mine. But I want one more thing. What? I want Keisha Williams to oversee it, to be the guardian of Charles's legacy the way I was supposed to be. Victoria smiled. She has the eye. I could tell the moment I saw what she'd preserved. She understands value. Keisha was speechless. I don't have the education and the credentials. You have something more important. You have integrity. You have courage. And you have a son who needs to see that doing the right thing leads to good outcomes. Victoria took her hand. Let me do this. Let me give you the future that was stolen from me. Let me know that Charles's collection will be protected by someone worthy. Marcus tugged at Keisha's sleeve. Mom, say yes. She looked at her son, at the hope in his eye, at the dream house drawings he'd made month after month while they lived in a van. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll do it. Victoria smiled, and for a moment Keisha saw the young woman from the photographs. The woman who'd loved art, who'd been trusted with a legacy, who'd had everything stolen from her. Then it settled. Charles's collection preserved by someone who knows what matters. Victoria looked at the Los Angeles skyline, at the city she'd fled 40 years ago. I'm home. Finally, after all this time, I'm home. The weeks that followed were a hurricane of activity. Catherine Palmer's arrest dominated the news cycle, with reporters dissecting every detail of the 40-year conspiracy. Gregory Palmer, stripped of his power and facing his own legal consequences, cooperated fully with investigators, providing testimony that filled in the gaps Victoria's evidence couldn't reach. But for Keisha, the real work was just beginning. Mom, wake up. Marcus was shaking her shoulder. We're going to be late. She opened her eyes, momentarily disoriented. Not the cramped back of the van. Not Eleanor's spare room. A real bedroom with actual walls and a door that locked and windows that let in morning light. Their apartment. Their home. Victoria had insisted on covering the first year's rent while the legal matters were sorted out. Keisha had protested, but Victoria had simply smiled and said Charles would have wanted his collection's guardian to have a proper home. Consider it part of the job. What time is it? 7:30. The ceremony starts at 10, and you said we need to be there early. The ceremony. Today was the official unveiling of the Palmer Victoria collection at the Los Angeles Museum of Contemporary Art. 3 months of planning, cataloging, and preparation had led to this moment. Keisha showered quickly, put on the simple navy dress Miranda had helped her pick out, and checked her reflection in the mirror. She barely recognized the woman looking back at her. Same face, same tired eyes, but something different underneath? Confidence, maybe, or just the absence of constant fear. "You look pretty, Mom." "Thank you, baby. You look handsome, too." Marcus had insisted on wearing a suit, his first ever. He'd stood in front of the mirror for 10 minutes that morning, adjusting the tie Mrs. Jenkins had shown him how to knot. "Are you nervous?" he asked, terrified. "Me too." He took her hand. "But we'll be terrified together." They arrived at the museum at 8:30. Eleanor was already there, directing a camera crew that was documenting the day for a feature story. Miranda was reviewing last-minute legal documents with museum officials, and Victoria stood in the center of it all, looking at the paintings that had once belonged to the man who'd trusted her with everything. "Keisha." Victoria turned when she heard them approach. "You're here?" "I couldn't miss this." "Neither could I." Victoria looked around at the gallery walls, now filled with impressionist masterpieces and contemporary works that Charles Palmer had spent a lifetime collecting. "I never thought I'd see these again, not in person. I had photographs, of course, articles, auction records, but to actually stand here to see what Charles built," her voice broke. "He would be proud," Keisha said quietly, "of what you've done, of how you protected his legacy." "I ran away. For 40 years I hid while his collection was sold off, piece by piece." "You survived. That's not the same as running away." Keisha touched her arm. "And because you survived, because you left that evidence in a storage unit and trusted that someone would find it, Charles's vision will finally be honored." Victoria wiped her eyes. "You're very wise for someone so young." "I'm 34. I don't feel young." "Trust me. From where I'm standing, you're practically a child." Victoria laughed softly. "Tucky." "A child who single-handedly brought down the Palmer family empire, who exposed 40 years of lies, who gave me my life back." "I didn't do it alone. Marcus found half the clues. Eleanor connected the dots. Miranda fought the legal battles." "But you started it. You saw value where others saw trash. That's a gift, Keisha. Never underestimate it." The guests began arriving at 9:30. Museum patrons, art collectors, journalists, city officials. People who'd known Charles Palmer. People who'd been deceived by Gregory. People who just wanted to witness history being made. And one very unexpected guest. "Mom?" Marcus tugged her sleeve. "That man just walked in." Keisha turned. Gregory Palmer stood at the entrance looking lost and old and somehow smaller than she remembered. He wasn't supposed to be here. His lawyers had advised against any public appearances while the investigation continued. "Should I call security?" Miranda appeared at Keisha's side. "No, let him come." Gregory walked slowly through the gathering crowd, ignoring the whispers and stares. He stopped in front of Victoria, who stood frozen, her face unreadable. "Victoria?" "Gregory." They looked at each other for a long moment. 40 years of history of pain, of stolen lives, and buried secrets. "I came to apologize." Gregory's voice was barely above a whisper. "I know it's not enough. I know nothing will ever be enough. But I needed you to hear it. I'm sorry for everything I did, for everything I let happen, for the life you should have had." Victoria didn't respond immediately. The room had gone silent, everyone watching this confrontation between the woman who'd lost everything and the man who'd taken it. "Do you know what I dreamed about in Mexico?" she finally said. "Every night for 40 years I dreamed about walking through Charles's gallery, touching the paintings he loved, hearing him explain why each one mattered." Her voice hardened. "You stole that from me. You and Catherine, you stole my life, my future, my name." "I know." "You let me believe my family would be hurt if I came back. You let me live in fear every single day for 4 decades. "I know. And now you want to apologize?" Victoria's eyes were blazing. "You want me to forgive you so you can feel better about yourself?" Gregory shook his head. "No, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I came because you deserved to hear me say the words. To look you in the eye and admit what I did." He paused. "And because I wanted you to know that Charles's last thoughts were of you." Victoria went still. "What?" "I was with him when he died. He was lucid until the very end. And the last thing he said was your name." Gregory's voice cracked. "He said, 'Take care of Victoria. She's the only one who understands.' I promised him I would, and then I spent 40 years breaking that promise. Tears were streaming down Victoria's face now. He said my name. He loved you. Not romantically, but deeply. You were the daughter he never had, the heir he chose. And I destroyed what he built because I was jealous of what you had with him. Get out. Victoria's voice was barely controlled. I can't do this. Not today. Not here. I understand. Gregory turned to leave, then stopped. Victoria, the Monet, the one Charles bought for your birthday in 1982, I never sold it. It's been in storage all these years. I couldn't let it go. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small key. It's yours now, like it always should have been. He set the key on a nearby display case and walked out. The room remained silent for several long seconds. Then Victoria collapsed into a chair, sobbing. Keisha knelt beside her. Victoria, are you okay? He kept it. After everything he did, he kept the painting Charles gave me. Victoria looked at the key in her hand. I don't understand. Maybe he's not entirely a monster. Maybe some small parts of him actually loved Charles too. Keisha helped her stand. But that doesn't change what he did, or what you've accomplished despite him. No, it doesn't. Victoria dried her eyes. The ceremony, we need to continue. Are you sure? Charles would have wanted this day to be perfect. I won't let Gregory ruin it. She straightened her shoulders. Let's go. The ceremony was beautiful. The museum director gave a speech about Charles Palmer's contributions to the art world. Eleanor presented her documentary footage about Victoria's disappearance and triumphant return. Miranda outlined the legal victory that had restored Victoria's rightful inheritance. And then Victoria herself took the podium. 40 years ago, a man I loved like a father trusted me with everything he'd built. His collection, his legacy, his vision for what art could mean in people's lives. Her voice was strong, despite the emotion underneath. For 40 years, that trust was betrayed. The collection was sold off piece by piece. The story was buried. And I was erased. She looked out at the crowd, her eyes finding Keisha's. But Charles believed in something. He believed that art finds the people who need it, that beauty survives, that truth, no matter how deeply buried, eventually comes to light. She smiled. He was right. A homeless mother with $47 bought a storage unit full of what looked like garbage, and she saw what I'd hidden. She saw value where others saw trash. She saw a story that needed to be told. Victoria gestured for Keisha to join her on the stage. Keisha Williams will serve as the guardian of this collection, not because she has degrees or credentials or connections, but because she has something more important. She has the ability to see what matters, to recognize truth, to fight for justice even when the odds seem impossible. Keisha walked to the podium on shaky legs. The crowd was watching her, this woman who'd been homeless 2 months ago, now standing in front of millionaires and museum directors. I don't know what to say. Her voice came out steadier than she expected. A few weeks ago, I was living in a van with my son trying to figure out how to afford his asthma medication. I went to that storage auction because a kind woman gave me a flyer and told me the universe sends opportunities to those who pay attention. She looked at Marcus, who was beaming at her from the front row. I paid attention, not because I'm special, but because I had to be. When you're poor, when you're overlooked, when the world treats you like you don't matter, you learn to see things others miss. You learn that value isn't always obvious, that treasures hide in unexpected places. She turned back to the crowd. Victoria Palmer spent 40 years waiting for someone to find her evidence. She trusted that the right person would come along. I don't know if I'm the right person, but I promise you this, I will protect this collection the way Charles wanted it protected. I will honor Victoria's sacrifice, and I will make sure that the story of what happened, the lies and the betrayal and the ultimate triumph of truth is never forgotten. The applause was thunderous. After the ceremony, the crowd mingled in the gallery. Keisha found herself cornered by reporters, collectors, and officials who wanted to shake her hand and tell her how inspired they were. Miss Williams, a woman in an expensive suit, approached. I'm on the board of the Los Angeles Housing Authority. I've been following your story and I have to ask, how many other families in this city are living in their cars right now? How many other talented people are being overlooked because they don't have an address? Keisha thought about it. Too many. When we were homeless, I met mothers smarter than me, fathers more talented than me, kids as brilliant as my son. They're invisible because society looks right through them. Would you be interested in working with us? Helping develop programs that give homeless families the same chance you got. I'm not sure I'm qualified. You're more qualified than anyone with a degree. You've lived it." The woman handed her a card. "Think about it. The world needs people who understand what it's like to be invisible." As the reception wound down, Keisha found Victoria standing alone in front of a particular painting, the Monet. Gregory had delivered it that morning as promised. It showed a garden at sunset, all soft colors and gentle light. "He bought this for my 28th birthday," Victoria said without turning around. "We stood right here in this gallery, and he told me I was the daughter of his heart, that he wanted me to have something beautiful to remember him by. It's stunning. It's the most valuable piece in the entire collection, worth more than everything else combined." Victoria finally turned to face Keisha. "And he kept it. For 40 years, while he was selling everything else, he kept this one painting. What are you going to do with it? Display it, here with the others, but with a new inscription." Victoria's eyes were wet. "In memory of Charles Palmer, who believed that love transcends blood, and in honor of the families we choose." Mrs. Jenkins came to the reception, her best dress pressed and her gray hair pinned up fancy. "Look at you," she said, pulling Keisha into a hug. "I told you the universe sends opportunities. Didn't I tell you? You did? And look what you did with it. Found a missing woman, brought down a criminal empire, got yourself a real job and a real home." Mrs. Jenkins wiped her eyes. "Your mama would be so proud." Keisha's mother had died when she was 20. She rarely talked about it, rarely let herself think about what her mother might say about the choices she'd made. "You think so?" "I know so. She raised a fighter, a survivor, someone who sees value in places others don't look." Mrs. Jenkins squeezed her hands. "That's a gift, baby. Don't ever forget it." Samir Hassan came too, bringing his wife and 3 of his grandchildren. "I knew you were special," he told her. "The moment you walked into my shop, I could see it. The way you looked at things, the way you understood quality. You gave Marcus a chess set. That was when things started to change." "The chess set was nothing, a small kindness." Samir smiled. "The big changes, those came from you, from your courage, your persistence. I just gave a boy a game. You gave him a future." Marcus had found friends among the museum docents who were fascinated by his story and his intelligence. Keisha watched him explaining chess strategy to a group of adults, his confidence blooming in a way she'd never seen before. "He's remarkable," Victoria said, joining her. "Reminds me of myself at that age. Too smart for his own good, always asking questions no one wanted to answer. He keeps me honest. Every time I wanted to give up, every time I thought about just taking the money and walking away, he reminded me why the truth matters. Children often see more clearly than adults. We get cluttered with compromises and fears. They just see what's right and wrong." "He saw you, Eku," Keisha said quietly. "In those photographs in the diary pages. He saw a woman who needed help even though you'd been gone before he was born. And he helped you fight for me. We fought together, all of us." Victoria was quiet for a moment. "I have something for you. A gift. You've already given me too much. This is different." Victoria reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. "It's a letter from Charles, to whoever eventually found my evidence." Keisha stared at the envelope. "He wrote a letter. He knew I was planning contingencies, knew that if something happened to me, I wanted the truth to survive." Victoria pressed the envelope into her hands. "I never opened it. I wanted to wait until the right person found it, until I could give it to them myself." Keisha's hands trembled as she opened the envelope. The paper inside was yellowed with age, but the handwriting was clear. "To whoever finds these words," she read aloud, "if you're reading this, then Victoria's fears were justified, and something terrible has happened. But it also means that her courage was not in vain, that somewhere someone cared enough to dig for the truth." She had to stop her voice catching. "Continue," Victoria said softly. "Please. I have spent my life surrounded by beautiful things. Paintings, sculptures, treasures from every corner of the world. But the most valuable thing I ever found was not art. It was Victoria Palmer, a young woman who understood that beauty is not about price or prestige. It's about the human spirit's endless capacity to create, to hope, to endure." Keisha looked up at Victoria, whose tears were falling freely now. "Whoever you are reading this, know that you have something rare. The ability to see what others miss. To find treasure in what the world calls worthless. That gift is more valuable than any painting in my collection. Use it well, protect the truth. And remember that the greatest art is not what hangs on walls. It's the courage we show when no one is watching." The letter was signed simply Charles Palmer, 1983. "He wrote that 6 months before he died," Victoria whispered. "He knew, even then, he knew something might happen. He trusted you, and you trusted me." Keisha folded the letter carefully. "I won't let either of you down." The next few months brought more changes than Keisha could have imagined. Her role as collection guardian came with a salary that seemed astronomical compared to her previous life. Marcus enrolled in a good school where his teachers quickly recognized his brilliance. Eleanor's documentary about the case won awards and brought national attention to the story, and Catherine Palmer stood trial. The prosecution's case was overwhelming. Thornton's recorded accusations, Gregory's testimony, Victoria's 40 years of documented fear, the evidence from the storage unit. Catherine's lawyers tried every trick, every delay, every appeal, but the truth was too powerful to bury again. The verdict came on a Tuesday morning. Keisha sat in the courtroom with Marcus, Eleanor, and Victoria. Miranda was at the prosecution table, having consulted on the case. "On the charge of murder in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty." Catherine's face went white. "On the charge of kidnapping, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of conspiracy, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of witness tampering, we find the defendant guilty." One by one, the charges stacked up. 40 years of crimes finally acknowledged. 40 years of justice finally delivered. As the bailiffs led Catherine away, she looked back at the gallery. Her eyes found Keisha's. "This isn't over," she said. "My lawyers will appeal. You haven't won." Keisha stood up. "Yes, I have. Victoria is free. The truth is out. Your husband is cooperating with investigators. Your empire is gone." She stepped closer to the railing. "And you know what I am, a nobody. A homeless woman who got lucky? But this homeless nobody destroyed everything you built. Think about that in your cell." Catherine was still screaming threats as they dragged her through the door. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Keisha answered their questions patiently, then stepped back to let Victoria take center stage. "How does it feel to finally have justice?" a reporter asked. "It feels like breathing," Victoria said. "For 40 years I've been holding my breath, waiting for this moment, waiting for the truth to matter more than power and money." She smiled. "Today it finally does." "What will you do now?" "Live. For the first time in 4 decades, I'm going to actually live." She looked at Keisha. "And I'm going to watch my friend build something beautiful with the collection Charles left behind." That evening, they gathered at Keisha's apartment. Victoria, Eleanor, Miranda, Mrs. Jenkins, Samir, and his wife. The people who'd helped turn a storage unit discovery into a complete transformation. Marcus had made a banner that said Justice Day in careful letters. He'd hung it across the living room, then immediately started organizing a chess tournament for the adults. "Akema." "I can't believe it's really over," Eleanor said, accepting a glass of wine. 40 years of investigating, and it ends with Catherine Palmer in handcuffs. "It's not ending," Miranda corrected. "It's just changing. The civil cases will take years to untangle. Gregory's cooperation has complicated things. The estate distribution alone will keep lawyers busy for a decade. But the important part is done." Victoria sat in the chair of honor, looking tired but peaceful. "The truth is out. Charles's wishes will be honored. And Catherine can't hurt anyone ever again." "What will happen to Gregory?" Keisha asked. "Probably probation given his cooperation and age. Plus, he's voluntarily surrendered most of the assets he acquired fraudulently." Miranda shrugged. "He's not a good man, but he's not the monster Catherine was. He was weak and greedy. She was calculating and cruel." "He kept the Monet," Victoria said quietly. "For 40 years, while Catherine was selling everything else, he protected that one painting. I don't know if that makes him better or just more complicated." "People are always complicated," Mrs. Jenkins offered. "Good and bad mixed together. That's what makes them human." Marcus won the chess tournament, beating Samir in the final match through a strategy he'd been practicing for weeks. The older man laughed and declared the boy would be a grandmaster someday. "Not a grandmaster," Marcus said seriously. "An art guardian, like Mom." "You can be both," Victoria told him. Charles was a chess player too. He said it taught him patience and strategy, skills that helped him build his collection. "Did he teach you to play?" "He tried. I was terrible." Victoria smiled at the memory. "But he said I had something better than chess skill. I had the ability to see the moves before they happened, to understand what people really wanted, even when they didn't say it." "That's like Mom. She sees things other people miss." "Yes, she does. That's why Charles would have loved her." Later, after the guests had gone and Marcus was asleep, Keisha stood at the window looking out at the city lights. Los Angeles spread before her, glittering and vast. Somewhere out there was the van she'd called home for 14 months. Somewhere was the gas station bathroom where she'd washed her face every morning. Somewhere were the parking lots where she'd stayed awake all night watching for danger. She wasn't that woman anymore, but she wouldn't forget her either. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Her heart jumped before she remembered that Catherine was in jail, that the threat was over. The message was simple: "Thank you for everything, Victoria." Keisha smiled and typed back, "Thank you for trusting me, for trusting that someone would find your evidence." The response came quickly. "I knew you would come. Somehow I always knew. Charles said art finds the people who need it. I think truth does too. It found you." 3 months later, the Palmer Victoria collection had its grand opening. Thousands of people walked through the galleries, admiring paintings they'd only seen in books, learning the story of a woman who'd lost everything and the homeless mother who'd helped her get it back. Keisha stood at the entrance greeting visitors, answering questions, sharing the story she'd lived. "Excuse me." A young woman approached, nervous and uncertain. "Are you Keisha Williams, the one from the news?" "That's me." "I wanted to meet you. I wanted to say..." The woman's voice broke. "I'm living in my car right now, me and my daughter. We've been homeless for 8 months, and every time I wanted to give up, I thought about you, about what you did with $47 and a storage unit full of garbage." Keisha took her hand. "What's your name?" "Daniela." "Daniela, I want you to know something. I didn't have any special skills or connections. I just paid attention. I looked at things other people dismissed, and I refused to give up even when everything seemed impossible. But you were lucky. You found something valuable. I found value because I looked for it, because I'd spent years learning to see what others miss." Keisha squeezed her hand. "You can do the same thing. Maybe not with a storage unit, but there's something out there waiting for you. An opportunity, a connection, a chance to show what you are, what you're worth. You just have to be ready when it comes." "How do I get ready?" "Pay attention, learn everything you can, take care of your daughter, and never let anyone make you feel like you're invisible." Keisha smiled. "Because you're not. I see you." Daniela left with tears in her eyes and hope in her heart. Marcus appeared at Keisha's side. Who was that? Someone who needed to hear that things can get better. Because of what happened to us. Because of what we did. We didn't just get lucky, baby. We worked for this. We fought for this. We refused to give up even when it seemed impossible. She put her arm around him. "That's not luck. That's courage. Victoria says I'm courageous too, like a knight in chess. Victoria is a wise woman." They walked through the gallery together, past paintings worth millions, past the history of a family's triumph and tragedy, past the evidence of what one woman's determination could accomplish. At the center of the collection hung the Monet. The garden at sunset, soft colors and gentle light. The painting Charles had given Victoria for her 28th birthday, the one Gregory had protected, even while betraying everything else. The inscription Victoria had chosen read, "In memory of Charles Palmer, who believed that love transcends blood, in honor of Victoria Palmer, who survived, and in gratitude to Keisha Williams, who saw value where others saw trash." "That's us," Marcus whispered. "We're part of history now. We always were, baby. We just didn't know it." Outside, the Los Angeles sun was setting, painting the sky in colors that matched the Monet. Keisha thought about the journey that had brought her here. The eviction, the van, the gas station bathrooms, the fear that never quite went away. The $47 gamble that had changed everything. She thought about Victoria, finally free after 40 years. About Eleanor, whose decades of persistence had finally paid off. About Miranda, who'd fought legal battles against impossible odds. About Mrs. Jenkins, who'd handed her a flyer and told her the universe sends opportunities. And she thought about Charles Palmer, dead for over 40 years, who'd written a letter to whoever might find his legacy and trusted that the right person would come along. She had been that person. A homeless mother with nothing to lose and everything to gain. Someone who'd learned to see value in places others never looked. Someone who'd refused to give up even when the world treated her like she was invisible. "Mom?" Marcus tugged her sleeve. "What are you thinking about how far we've come, about everything we've been through?" She knelt down to look him in the eye. "About how proud I am of you." "I'm proud of you too." He hugged her tight. "You're the bravest person I've ever known. I learned from you." They stood together in the gallery, mother and son, surrounded by masterpieces and history and the evidence of what courage could accomplish. $47, a storage unit full of garbage, a woman who'd been invisible her whole life. And now this. Mrs. Jenkins had been right. The universe sends opportunities to those who pay attention. Victoria had been right. Truth finds the people brave enough to recognize it. Charles had been right. The greatest art is not what hangs on walls, but the courage we show when no one is watching. Keisha Williams had shown that courage. And because she had a 40-year injustice had been corrected, a stolen legacy had been restored, and a woman who'd lost everything had finally come home. The homeless mother who'd won a millionaire's storage space had done something far more valuable than find treasure. She had found justice. She had found purpose. She had found herself, and that was worth more than all the paintings in the world.